This is Main Street with Gary Allen. Now, here's Gary.
And hello, everybody, and I hope you've had a wonderful week since the last time we joined each other. I hope all is well in your part of the world, wherever you are watching this particular program. We've got a great program for you this afternoon, but before we do that, I just want to again thank the Japanese Gardens for their continued support of this program. Also, Rick Del Vecchio, the executive producer, Tommy Sitt, who is my producer on premises, commanding all the bells and whistles. Thank you so very much, gentlemen, for your continued support of this program. We've got a good show for you this afternoon. We're missing one of our members, Mr. Jeff LaMont, Defo. Jeff LaMont. What am I talking about? Jeff DeForest. Defo has got some business he had to take care of late this afternoon. So we're going to be, he'll be joining us next time. But right now, my brother from another mother, my Baltimore Oriole fan and a Green Bay Packer fan, Mr. Dave LaMont.
And don't forget Washington Commanders. Might as well bring that back up.
Yeah. Weren't they going to change that name somewhere along the line again?
It takes a while to do that kind of thing. It's okay for now. It'll do. The more important thing is you got better ownership and a better product on the field. So
yeah,
that's what really matters. Trust me.
Yeah. Oh no. If you don't have a good product on the field, you're not going to show many people in the seats. The Marlins are a prime example of that one that we know oh so well.
Yeah, that's one of the strangest stories in modern professional sports. It almost, the constant cutting, and now of course they ripped a lot of people out of the organization.
Yeah,
and everyone knew the manager was gone. That was his decision, and he'll get a job as soon as you'll start seeing that Skip Schumacher will not wait a long time to get another managerial job. But whatever their organizational philosophy is, they're not really sharing it with the public. It's always seeming like no matter who's owned the club, that eventually, with success comes painful failure. And, yes, they have 2 World Series titles, which a lot of organizations that seemingly are better run don't have. We got the Padres in the playoffs making some noise against the Dodgers. They still don't have a World Series ring.
Yeah.
It's really bizarre to me how they have had the ultimate success in the sport while at the same time somehow managing to stain it with some of their behavior from the front offices.
It behooves the mind. You said something interesting. You would think that the management would have some sort of philosophy. I don't think they have a philosophy. I really don't. They fired their GM, the lady from last year, and I always forget her name.
Ing.
Yeah. And she did a wonderful job. She got them in the playoffs. Yeah, they got run out of town by my Phillies, but you know what? It seemed like they were moving in the right direction. Their staff was pretty good. They were putting some people in the seats, and it takes a slow build. But I don't know what they're doing, and I don't think they know what they're doing. And whoever's advising them, it certainly isn't baseball people, Dave.
Well,
certainly isn't somebody in baseball.
I would argue this, Gary, and I have thought about this before. Why do you own a sports team? It is not an easy thing to do. It is a financial. Now the good news is you're generally going to get way more money back if you do sell the team. I mean, he won't ever do it. He'll literally die in the stadium. But if Jerry Jones were to ever sell the Cowboys, it would be an insane amount of profit that he would make off of that.
Yeah.
And sports teams, in this country, at professional sports, make money.
Yeah.
So it can't just be that. I don't understand why, if you own a sports team, your number one goal isn't to win a championship and to be a consistent winner. Now, not everybody gets to win, and you do make mistakes on your hirings. Maybe you do get the wrong coach or wrong manager, or maybe you get a bad GM. And that does happen. Maybe you have a great couple of players and they get hurt and they leave, whatever. That does happen to every team. But if I owned a team, that's my goal. Yeah, I want to make money. Yeah, of course, I'm a capitalist, naturally. Nothing wrong with capitalism. But at the same time, winning is part of that. And that puzzles me, because you look at what the Pirates did to that kid. They for $200,000, which in pro sports really isn't that much money at this level. We're not talking about a minor league baseball team where you do have tighter budgets and smaller budgets. But I just don't get how people do that. and why they do it. You mentioned ego. There's a portion of that for sure.
Yeah.
You get the best seats, you get the best of everything comes your way. But at the same time, there's an outspoken commitment to do your best to make this franchise a model franchise. And man, there's a model there, all right, but it ain't a good one.
We talked about it briefly, and Jeff on the last show, I think, even said that there was some talk. Now, how far it went, I don't know. Maybe you do. You're closer to the team down there than I am from where I am. I may not even be here after Wednesday if the hurricane has its will. But there was some talk about forcing them to sell or move.
Well, I haven't heard much of that. I mean, they may sell. Maybe I don't know if I don't think there's anybody here. This is such a weird area for business because tourism, I think, is the number one business around here. But we don't really have industry. You don't drive down certain parts of South Florida and find industrious buildings, industrious anything. This is a bizarre area for that. So I don't know if there's a local owner who would step in like when Wayne Huizenga was alive, or John Henry was around. So I don't know what their future is. It can't be a good one. Now, admittedly, they had a lot of people hurt, and they might have a decent pitching staff next year. But it seems like there's just a cloud over this team the last few years, even making the playoffs last year. So we'll see. It's the qualified teams that are largely well run are the ones that are playing currently, including your Phillies.
Yeah, well, I don't know how long that's going to last because you remember I said they're not hitting, and they're still not hitting. Really, last night I couldn't watch the game yesterday. I was working, but I was surprised when I came home that Castellanos actually did something because that man swings at anything that's even in the next time zone. I can't quite figure out. I mean, he is a free swinger if there ever was. And Tommy brought something up before the beginning of the show. If your bullpen can't keep in with wheels after the extraordinary game one that he pitched against the Mets, there's something wrong here because that bullpen was pretty good most of the season. But it seemed like after the All-Star break, Dave, they went hitting-wise and bullpen-wise, they went right into the rabbit hole.
Yeah, I haven't paid as much attention to them as you have, but that sounds pretty accurate from what I've been able to glean, I should say, about the Phillies. It's, the Mets have that destiny thing about them too. It seems like the Alonso homer is a good example of that. The bizarro way they got in on the last day and that thing with the Braves and on all of that. But hey, you're still there, and that's about the best you can hope for. I mean, some people think the Dodgers are in trouble. I think the Dodgers are the best team in the National League. They had a terrible game, but people wonder if their starting pitching will hold out.
I wonder if
I don't think we're going to get Ohtani. At this point, we would probably have heard something about that. And
that was my next question. That was my next question.
Such a gamble, man, because if something happens something bad happens, then you may not be able to use them at all in the future. And that would be bad for the Dodgers and bad for all of baseball.
Yeah, that was my next question. There was some talk, some rumblings before the playoffs began about him maybe doing a relief stint here or there, but I agree with you. I don't see it either. That's a lot of money on the table if something should happen to him, not only for the present time, but in the future as well.
Yep.
I mean, you don't play with that kind of stuff. I mean, it's like that World Series where Reggie Jackson made his name. You don't sit him down. He's hotter than can be. But I'm hoping for the Phillies, but I'm not holding my breath, my brother. I am not holding my breath.
Well, it's bad for your health anyway.
Yeah, but my health has never been the prime thing in my life anyway. By the way, I hope everybody who's watching this program is going to be safe in the storm. I'm going to get a Category 1 over here eventually when it gets going this way. But yeah, it'll be a 1 by the time it reaches here because I forget what was it in meteorology school because you both of us went to the U. How many miles does it take if it's a Category 3 that hits the coast? It'll be a 4, almost a 3. How many miles inland does it take before it drops from a 3 to a 2?
I think it so much depends on the land. If we were in a mountainous area, the storm gets chewed up much more quickly.
Yeah.
I think the only thing that might benefit is that they do weaken when they hit land, as we all know, and
Yeah.
it's supposedly moving fairly quickly. It's not going to
Yeah.
be one of those events where it just sits and dumps on you. So,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, you're south of. I'm reading that a
st-
lot of the damage is more north than where you are, and
Well,
I'm further south
I'm
of
about
you.
40.
So,
I'm about
yeah,
45. You know that little peninsula that sticks out that's Cape Canaveral?
yeah, sure,
I'm
heard
about
of it.
45. I'm about 45 miles south of there.
Okay, I think you'll
You know,
be.
so
I'll take your chances over the West Coast right now. I'm
yeah,
lucky
but
where I'm at. We're not in the cone of death, and I think
no.
we will get minimal effects. We'll get some effects. It's impossible not to. But luckily, for the second storm in a row, it looks like that we're going to
Yeah.
dodge anything serious.
But if you get a knock on your door and you notice it's me with a cat, it's
Well, the
it's
cat
me.
comes in. That's welcome. Now, I have other cats, so but we
Yeah.
also have an outdoor cat that is kind of ours. So,
Well, I'll stand. I'll listen. I'll stand in the corner. It's not a big deal.
yes, you will.
I will stand in the corner. Let's talk about our alma mater. It
Mhm.
has been way. I stayed. Did you stay up Saturday
No,
night?
no. Come on.
Okay.
Come
I did. I can't. It's the only thing I really follow besides the NBA, and that's just getting started. Dave Lamont's joining us here on Main Street. Gary Allen with you. Their defense has got to do. They got to step up. They can't let this continue to happen because it is going to bite them in the butt at some point.
Oh, sure. I thought, well, if you remember, and I will pat myself on the back for that. What game did I say was a real problem looking at the schedule?
Cal.
Yeah. And I just thought, I just based it not necessarily on having an intimate knowledge of Cal football, which I do not have, but based on an intimate knowledge of what University of Miami football has been like,
Yeah.
playing teams that you are supposedly better than and losing. And they've done it for several years. It's been an arrow in the heart of every season, and it turns a 9-win year into a 6 or 7-win year, and it has been a real problem. So the encouraging thing is the talent level they have now, particularly obviously a quarterback.
Yeah.
You can somehow fight your way out of these problems, and they're not losing. But the last 2 games are a year ago would have been losses. One of them probably would have been a blowout. One of them they would not have been able to come back and make exciting and close. Whichever one, it doesn't matter. But it's in Virginia Tech. I did see that game, and they were better than I thought they were going to be. Wonderful running back. That kid's great. But Cal, I did not see very much of the game, and I was just, you had a pick six, and the one thing about Ward is there's very, very high upside, obviously, but he is turnover prone. And he turned the ball over a lot last year at Wazoo, and he's starting to get into that pattern with the Hurricanes. The difference, of course, now is past Hurricane quarterbacks can't come within 100 miles of this guy's ability. And also, to be honest with you, Gary, this guy's got a lot of guts.
Yes.
Because and clearly leadership ability, clearly that the offense it buys into Cam Ward as much as anything else. That's important, because if you're in a situation as dire as it was for Miami, and on a day where that everything is improving for you in a big picture sense, if you can somehow win the game with all the crazy stuff that happened, you can go nowhere but up if you win. And they're in a dire as far as the season goes. Now, if they lose to Cal and win out, they'll still be a playoff team. But this would have been a damaging defeat, and somehow, and it's still impossible to imagine, they pulled it out. So you're right; it cannot go on forever, and Louisville will be in a couple of weeks. Will be a tough test.
He has at least one guy who I think is going to be a wonderful slot receiver in the NFL, and you know who I'm talking about.
I assume you mean Restrepo.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a Braxton Berrios type is what he is.
Yeah.
And Berrios is, a kick returner right now for the Dolphins. So I don't know if Restrepo will get to that level or higher. But yeah, I think every great quarterback has his favorite receiver. And there's combinations by the hundreds in the history of football that have worked out very well, both college and pro. And this is certainly one of the better combinations in college football, no doubt.
Oh, he pulls them out of the nest. Here's my question, though, Dave, as we look forward, not on this season. There aren't many Cam Wards. And let's face it, even if Cam Ward was a junior, He's going to the NFL one way or the other, win, lose, or draw. He's
Right.
gone. Where are we going when this season is over, whenever that is, with a quarterback who isn't going to be a Cam Ward, maybe has a few of the intangibles that he has? Does he go outside and go to the portal again? Because I'm
Mhm.
sure there'll be quarterbacks that are going to want to come here now, the
Yeah.
same as there will be other players. And what do we do about homegrown?
All great questions, Gary. I think homegrown may not matter as much as it used to because of NIL and because of the transfer portal. There may be a Cam Ward out there we just don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Last year, we knew about Cam Ward because he had already built up. I mean, this is the guy who started at Incarnate Word and ends up at Washington State, which still doesn't get a lot of publicity. Now he
No.
comes to a place that gets a lot of publicity, and it's working out beautifully. So you're right. I 100% agree. It is going to attract other guys who are going to want to come to play here, whether they're experienced or the old-fashioned way of bringing in a hotshot freshman, like what Texas did with Arch Manning. And listen, Arch Manning could have left too, by the way.
Yeah.
You know, with Ewers in front of him, a guy who is going to get drafted, and Manning didn't do that, and he stayed loyal, and it's paying off for both him and for Texas.
Yeah.
It may end up being something like that, Gary. There's probably somebody out there we have no idea who it is yet, whose name's going to end up in the running for the quarterback position.
Yeah. I mean,
you know, I don't know if you can do the at this level, mind you. I don't know if you can do. Hey, you know, this kid. A couple of years, he's going to be real good. No, you know what? If he doesn't play in a couple of years, he's going to be real gone. So kids today want almost immediate results, which makes them not much different than adults. And so you bring up incredible questions for which I'm only have speculative answers. Unfortunately, I can't pull a name out of thin air and go, oh, listen, there's some kid over there. Don't worry, he'll transfer out and he'll come to Miami. There'll be names that will pop up at the end of the year that you'll think, oh, well, that wouldn't be bad. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and I mean there will be. I mean, all this success at this point. There was a kid who was a defensive lineman decommitted from Miami. Running back, and he went to Alabama and he decommitted from us. He didn't commit to Alabama, but he just decommitted from Miami. We're going to get a lot of interesting players committing to Miami that Mario's going to have a lot to choose from very, very soon. And you know, it'll make November. I believe that's the early. Yeah, it's the early signing time, which I wish it wasn't. I really do. I wish. Oh, well, I guess he doesn't either. But I wish it was back where it was, which it is, but it's insignificant now, the one in January or February.
Well, it's all upside down. I think as a Hurricanes fan, you're not really worried about Mario as the recruiter.
No.
He seems to be doing okay there. It's Mario as the preparer and as the game day coach.
Yeah.
It's all of that. That's where he still takes some grief and probably will continue to take grief, even with the fact that the team hasn't lost yet. The other thing I wanted to get up, and I know you've got other things for us to talk about. But
continue on.
One of the things that I laugh at, Miami has a unique college football. We're relative newcomers when you think about it, as far as a prominent name, going back to the 80s, when you compare it to USC's and Nebraska's and Penn State's and even Florida, Georgia, Alabama, and so on. It's a different brand. It's not loved by everybody. Certainly it's hated by a lot of people, going again back to those 80s and 90s teams that were trash talkers and all of that. I think it's great for the sport in general that Miami is back to prominence, but they are not back.
No.
And I don't know if people just say this to be ironic or sarcastic, but they win and they're 6-0 right now. The U is back. No. The U is back, at least in my view, with the following conditions: win an ACC, been to the title game once, that's it, and lost to a very good Clemson team, admittedly, but still. And then you have to get in the playoff, and then you have to make this a consistent destination. This just can't be Cristobal he had Cam Ward. Then what happened? Oh, hell, he couldn't get a quarterback, and look at him now. They're in the 6-5 bowl game again.
Yeah.
The U being back, to me, Gary, my definition is consistency at the level they're at now. for 2 or 3 years, including at least one conference championship and a playoff appearance every year, and eventually you take the whole thing.
Yeah.
And that, so I know people want it that way. So whether they can either really embrace the program or really turn their backs on it or spit at it, whatever. But the U is not back, not in my mind. They're having a nice year. They won the last 2 games. In past, they would have lost, but they're not back.
No, and you're right. What made Miami great back when, and was before I was a student there and gone before they got good, was the consistency of year after year after year. The national championship usually went through Miami, Florida State game.
Yeah, that was always the biggest game of the year, always.
Yeah, and everything else didn't really matter. Nebraska would come in, or we'd go there, and we'd chew them up because they would run that single wing or whatever they used to call it formation, and they didn't realize how fast we were and how good we were. We got robbed in the Fiesta Bowl, I will tell you. And we also got robbed at Notre Dame because he did score the touchdown. But
well, in today's game, that would have been overturned. But
yeah,
it's
a consistency of year after year after year after year.
Yeah.
Miami's winning 10, 11 games, going to a championship of some kind, at least participating in it. That's 4 or 5 years from now when we're talking. And you say, oh, yeah, we won 2 national championships. We've been in a couple of championship games, blah, blah, blah. Then you could say Miami is back. Mario has brought them back. Right. But until then, no, you're right, 100%. One thing I want to key on, and then we're going to get on to some other stuff. You were talking about the quarterback, Cam Ward, having this attitude about himself. Every quarterback I've ever been around, and that you've been around, and I was around Johnny Unitas a long time, with the Colts, and I've been around other quarterbacks, and so have you. And even though Greasy is not exactly known as Mr. Personality, but when he got in that huddle, same as John, somebody once said something to John in the huddle about a play, and John said, hey, I'm the quarterback. You shut your mouth. We run what I want to run. Screw the coach. And the coach was Shula.
Yeah, well, they never got along, as you know.
Oh, no. They didn't hate each other by any stretch, but they just didn't see eye to eye. My brother didn't get along with John. I mean, John was very difficult to get along with, but every quarterback who's been successful has this single-minded about themselves. They know what they can do. They don't look at what they didn't do right until they have to. And then they remember, okay, I remember that. I'm not going to do that again. Yeah. I mean, and what's his name for Kansas City says Cam Ward is just like me.
Well, I mean, the beauty about Ward is the ability to throw from different arm angles, which is what you mentioned. Pat Mahomes can do that.
Yeah.
And the ability to make a play like what Lamar Jackson did yesterday to the Bengals. These guys who have this extra physical gear and then also the talent to make a play that just you can't understand how it was made. That's a quality that inspires your team.
Yep.
It gives them the great confidence, like the Colts had in Unitas, like the Patriots had in Brady, like the Cowboys had in Staubach, and so on down the line, like the Chiefs should have in Mahomes. I'm sure they do. That's a unique position to quarterback because you're the focus of the team, regardless of how great your defense is, regardless of whether you have a tremendous running back or an all-pro wide receiver. Everything revolves around quarterbacking, and that's an obvious statement. But in Miami's case, I don't think we've ever had anybody like this come through, and it's only going to be for the rest of the season and if he stays healthy. But maybe it will attract others like him. But you have to have that kind of attitude. You're going to have bad moments, and he's had them, but he moves on. They don't linger.
Yeah,
he has the relief pitcher mentality, Gary, that, oh, okay, I just gave up a home run, but I can still save the game. I can't let that home run stay in my brain anymore. I've got to go win the game. He didn't let the pick six stay in his brain. He goes and he wins the game.
It didn't. And when he threw the pick six, since you didn't watch the game, my cat was sitting next to me, Princess, who will be living with you before too long.
Yeah, sounds like it.
Yes. I looked and I went, When you throw across your body and you're throwing on the other side of the field, Dave, that's trouble to begin with, no matter who you are.
It's a mental mistake. Honestly, it's yes.
I think I can do more than I think I can do more than what's here.
Yeah. That's a trap. That's a trap guys fall into because they have such confidence in their ability. It's the old Dan Marino thing. No, but you can't beat a perfect throw. That was his mentality, and he's not the only one to say that, but that's I remember him saying it. And
Yeah.
that probably goes back to Sammy Baugh, for heaven's sakes. But those guys also are sitting at the high limit table at the casino, and you don't win every hand.
Yeah.
And he got smoked on that hand because he made a fundamental error.
Yeah, and he paid for it. Had it not been for that interception and the first touchdown by them, which, by the way, I don't. Since you didn't watch the game, are you aware of that the quarterback for Cal's father played at the U,
No.
and he and Mario lived next door to each other, and the kid was really psyched to beat Miami because
Oh, sure.
Miami never bothered to recruit him.
Yeah, well,
You know,
there's all these storylines that are cool. No, I'll be honest. I watched a lot of football Saturday because the day I had planned blew up, not in a horrible way, but just plans fell through.
yeah,
And yesterday I worked all day yesterday at a bowling center, so I listened. Actually watched more of the Dolphin game than I planned on because there were TVs where I was working. But
yeah.
no, it's a great W. It's time to move on to Louisville, and hopefully they can figure out a way to be said. Hey, they're bowl eligible. I think Indiana and Miami are the only two bowl eligible teams right now.
Yeah, exactly. But I just wanted to get that in there that every quarterback I've ever been around and you've ever heard of, they do have this single-mindedness about
The
themselves.
good
I can
ones
do
do.
this.
Yeah.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
Let's kind of move over to this past week. We lost two. One man who arguably you could say maybe belongs in the Hall of Fame, should have gone in the Hall of Fame if it wasn't for his problems. And then Mutombo also passed away. And I used to love him. I love the commercials. Oh, not in my place. No. And Pete Rose. I used to do a program out of West Palm Beach with him out of one of his restaurants from time
Yeah.
to time.
Well,
With some
he had
other
that one
guys.
in Boca that was pretty damn good, actually.
Yeah, it really
At
was.
one
And I had
point, Gary, if you remember, I'm pretty sure you'd been living here. You had within maybe a 10-minute drive, you had Pete Rose had a sports bar right off of the turnpike.
yep.
And a little bit further west, I think, or maybe a hair east, you had Wilt Chamberlain's.
Yeah.
And Wilt had a fantastic sports bar, really good food. Never saw him there. I don't think I ever saw Pete, but I mean, my kids would be young and I would take them there on a guy's night out. And
Yeah.
at Wilt's, they had a small basketball court.
Oh, cool.
And I would let them, run around because when you're a dad and you have young male children, there's a time where you have to just cut them loose and let them burn off some energy if you're going to enjoy your life. And so I would go to either of those two places. I think Pete's had some kind of like little game room or something. And the food at both places was actually pretty solid. So yeah.
Yeah, and it also had a booth for broadcasting and stuff. And
Yes,
Pete
it
would
did.
join us, and Pete would join us from time to time. And I was telling Tommy, our producer, Dave LaMont's with us here on Main Street. Gary Allen, your host. I don't know why I say that because you're just as much the host as I am.
Nah, I like it when you run. I'm a better reactor.
Oh,
I'm good
okay.
at reacting.
All right. Pete had an arrogance about himself that is what did him in. And betting on baseball, he knew it was a number one rule. Betting on his own teams to win, or he never bet them to lose. Baseball gave him opportunities to recant, and he wouldn't do it. But at the same time, baseball used him and would drag him out of the woodwork for special occasions here at the stadium here, that anniversary here, anniversary there.
Well, he was
popular.
popular.
Then when they got done with him, they pushed him aside. The saddest thing I ever saw, and I don't know if you ever saw him out there because I know you go to Vegas.
I know exactly what you're talking about. I never found it that sad. You're talking about sitting in the Caesars Farm shops in the Field of Dreams store?
Yeah.
I never found it sad. I just found it something he felt he had to do to make money. And because I saw other athletes there. I remember seeing Snake Stabler there with him.
Yeah.
Not Tyson, but there was sometimes someone with him.
Well, in Las Vegas, there was always a lot of athletes who retired there or who lived there during the off season. It's not a bad place to live, as I said to you on Facebook. It's not bad, but it does get old real fast. I mean, as a resident of that city for 10 years. But as you pointed out too, when I was living there, we were getting around on horse-drawn
Yeah, you have
carriage.
to tie your horse up and outside and the saloon, and it probably took you a while to get off the horse. And I'm sure
No,
chaps.
no,
No,
no.
I'm sure chaps and spurs were expensive back then too.
Believe me,
Probably,
they
so.
$20.
No
Um,
hurricanes in Las Vegas. That's all I got to say.
Oh, I'm going to tell you something. I missed that when I was out there because people out there are crazy. They have no real. The Las Vegas Raiders. Everybody out there, even the gangs out there, wore silver and black. So was ever.
Yeah.
But
Anyway,
my point being, Pete was given opportunities. He is in the Hall of Fame, not as the individual Pete Rose, but he is in there with a plaque from the Cincinnati Reds, from the
right.
Philadelphia Phillies. I think his bat and his shoes, the day that he beat Ty Cobb's record with the ball or a ball,
Mhm.
is in there too. So he's in the Hall. He's just not in the Hall as Pete Rose, the individual. Now, I don't think he's got a snowball's chance in hell of getting in there now because these young sports writers, they don't even care about Pete Rose or
Well,
players
doesn't
like
baseball
Jerry.
have to first lift the lifetime ban for even his name to appear on a ballot?
Yeah, and they're not going to do that.
Yeah, so that's the first thing. I mean, for all the people who are yelling about it, and so many people are getting it wrong. They just assume that the Hall of Fame banned him when it was actually baseball. So the people are
Yeah.
kind of taking their anger out on the Hall. The Hall is just is perhaps part of it, and I'm sure discussions have already been had at amongst the commissioner and his cronies, and perhaps even the commissioner in the Hall. Should we lift this and see? But at this point, why? I mean, if
Yeah.
Pete's not going to be around to enjoy it, what is it? It's almost cruel in a way to allow
Mm.
that to happen. To even have his name on the ballot. Now, once his name would get on the ballot, I have no idea what people are going to do. The attitude and everything has changed, Gary. I mean, one of these days you may turn on the show and go, "Hey, Main Street, brought to you by DraftKings." Get the Gary Allen Main Street special: buy two, get a third team free for your parlay. I mean,
For your
that's where
from
we
your
are.
from your lips to God's ears, my brother.
Well, my point is that the stuff that so many things that we used to do that were illegal are now okay, and other
Yeah,
things have switched around. In Pete's day,
you're
the
right.
drinking age was 18. Well, it's
Yeah,
21 now.
yeah.
We learned the hard way, and still. But anyway, now gambling, it's way more out in the open, and you have so many different media entities involved with it, and so much sponsorship. If you go through a football Sunday, you'll see the Hard Rock app is advertised, DraftKings
Yep.
is advertised, FanDuel gets some run. You see an
Mhm.
A-list celebrity like Jamie Foxx working for MGM. You imagine how
Yep.
MGM can afford to hire Jamie Foxx, but here's Jamie Foxx. Jamie Foxx, all right,
Mhm.
easily one of the most talented people of all time and an
Right.
Oscar winner, promoting your betting service. You have the Mannings involved with Caesars.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
And
so
you
it's changed.
and you and I have a friend who his whole program is sponsored by I guess one of the betting companies and they oh God, help me out here. I just
I
had his
don't know who you're
name.
talking about.
Uh oh, he was on ESPN. Now he has his own stuff. Levitard.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, exactly. So my point is, so here's what I'm getting at. I took a long time to get to my point. My point here is the younger guys who have started to have this in their careers or go to the parks or go to places where you can bet. You could literally bet in the press box if you wanted to, I think,
Yeah.
on your phone. Um, they're going to be a little bit looser, like gambling. Yeah, okay. But at the same time, there is an integrity issue, and you mentioned it. There probably still are signs in clubhouses about it.
There is. Yes.
So it's a real quandary. Do you go with, well, everything is pretty loose right now, much looser than it was when Rose was playing? It still would be improper now if Pete were for if Aaron Boone starts throwing down $1,000 a game on the Yankees to win,
Hmm.
or it's still not proper.
No. No.
So it's a conundrum, and it's one that. And the other thing that amazes me, Gary, here we are in 2024, getting to the shadow of 2025, and we are still talking about this. Like
Yeah.
this debate has gone on ever since his banishment, which was what in the 90s, right?
90s.
1990s when
Yeah.
Giamatti dies,
Yeah. Bart Giamatti.
and right not long after this all happened. So it shows to the pull of Pete Rose. It shows to the pull of some people who just loved him so much that they'll go, yeah, he better in baseball, but so what? God, he played the game the right way. Okay, he did. He played hard.
Yeah.
He was obviously
Yeah.
effective at what he did. So it's I can't think of too many other sports debates that have had this kind of legs and will continue now in Rose's passing, and probably until
Yeah.
they come out and definitively say one way or the other, ain't no way we're letting this guy in, or we're going to put his name on the ballot. Of course, you put his name on the ballot, and it's going to be 20-fold. But it fascinates me. I'm trying to think of one that has lasted this long, and I can't. Not right away anyway.
No. And the funny thing is that there are people in the Baseball Hall of Fame, the NFL Hall of Fame, people that you and I have met and have known shouldn't even be in the Hall of Fame.
Well, you
Okay.
have to do it but largely by character, by playing ability. And of course, one argument that comes back is, well, O.J. Simpson's still in the Hall of Fame. Yes, he was.
Yeah.
Technically found innocent of the first crime he was accused for, but the man did go to prison for something else.
Yeah.
And nothing happened to his Hall of Fame stature. There are guys in there who were alcohol, who cheated on their wives, who may have gotten into brawls, who were alcoholics, who were drug users.
Racist.
Especially in baseball, the early days, racists, open racists, by the way, no secret. Everybody knew it.
Ty Cobb. Ty Cobb was
there's
one of
others.
the biggest.
Cap Anson, if you want to go way the hell back to the Ty Cobb era, Cap Anson was accused of betting in baseball.
Yeah.
And yet he's in. It's
unbelievable.
If you're looking for a hall of perfect people, it's going to be empty.
Yeah.
You won't have a museum. So you have to make the decision. Now, that gets into the whole, well, wait a minute, Dave, Gary, what about Roger Clemens and Bonds and all these guys? Okay, well, that again comes down to performance integrity and whether or not you think what they did to their bodies artificially inflated their talent. It's really weird. Today, I was I know I'd seen it, and I just was randomly going through some Netflix stuff and found the Balco story, and I was going through that, and there's all this stuff about Bonds, of course, and it mentioned in the narrative that Bonds is probably going to be a Hall of Famer anyway.
Yeah.
Before he got jealous of McGwire and Sosa, thought that maybe people would embrace him like they embraced those two guys, not realizing that Bonds is not an embraceable type guy to the public. So yeah, it's an ever-ending argument about the worthiness of a Hall of Famer. Hey, Unitas was no saint. I've read books.
Oh.
Exactly. That reaction alone. Yet he is lionized, and people, forget there are plenty of people who have been unfaithful in their marriages or relationships. They have treated people poorly on the business side. There's a lot of this. Actually, supposedly, what kept Kurt Schilling out was this is an issue of morality versus talent. Some people just don't think he's a moral person because of the way he's treated people in business. I don't think his politics had much to do with it, but I think it's his business lack of acumen that's hurt him. This is a guy who was a money pitcher, a tremendous talent, but he's not in. And, maybe the Veterans Committee takes care of him. I don't know. But if we're going to get into that debate, then the Hall of Fame is going to be shrinking like crazy if we start throwing people out.
Yeah. I just look at I look at somebody like a Brian Urlacher, and I think, no, you don't belong in the Hall of Fame. I'm sorry. You just don't. He just doesn't. When I measure him up against my brother, Dick Butkus, Tommy Novus, Lambert, and guys like that, I go, no.
Well,
and then it would really anger me if Brewski gets in.
All right, here's a couple things I think, Gary. This is just you got me thinking now because Brewski's name did pop into my head. Urlacher was very media friendly. Big market, right? Second biggest, second
Chicago.
City, Chicago.
Yeah.
Huge market, huge media.
Yeah.
He got a lot of pub when he played. He was an all-pro. He was a very, very good player. Brewski was around at the right time, played on some great teams. Urlacher at least played in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Brewski, obviously. Again, media friendly, articulate, popular, all these things. I think it helps because it is kind of a popularity contest in a way.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Then you look at, say, Zach Thomas, who had all sorts of tackles records for the Miami Dolphins.
Yeah.
Very, very nice man. warm-hearted, good guy, good community guy, never got in trouble, an overachiever on the field. Here was a smallish linebacker, but Jimmy Johnson had the savvy to realize, this guy plays the game the right way. I'm going to take a chance on him. And he ends up getting in the Hall of Fame. Might have waited longer than he should have, but he's sort of the opposite of an Urlacher. He was not as charismatic, and he didn't play on, as much in the spotlight in Miami as Urlacher had in Chicago.
Yeah.
Thankfully, Zach did get in, and I do think he belongs because of his consistency.
And so
I don't
does
know.
Jason
Urlacher and
Taylor.
Bruschi, Taylor was a big splashy player, made big splashy plays, kind of helped revolutionize that outside rushing position as sort of a hybrid player. As the game evolved, he became this what my friend Ray Bentley would call a SUD, a stand-up defensive end, a guy who didn't put his hand in the dirt and was risky because he had the athletic ability and the talent to drop into coverage if necessary and screw things up, or just go right at your quarterback and had the quickness and the talent to get there. Those guys. It's interesting, Gary. I can't think of anybody in right now who's out there. We could do a whole show on who's the next people to go in the Hall of Fame. Who would offend me if they got in?
Well, there's not many to do, but there are a few when I put them up against, and maybe this is not right. And I know you'll
have to understand the game has changed.
Yeah. I mean, if they played the game today the way my brother and Dick Butkus played the game, they'd all be in prison.
Well, they wouldn't be in prison if they would just. Those guys would have to play by today's rules.
Yeah.
And I some of the rules I understand them. I don't necessarily appreciate them or like them, but I understand them. I understand the goal. But you're still getting guys. You had the whole thing with Josh Allen yesterday, apparently getting concussed. And yet he finishes the game. It's all different. Everything is, I can't think of a game. You mentioned Mutombo. I can't think of a game that is played the same way now than it was then.
Yeah.
Either equipment changes, like in golf. Guys are hitting golf balls now 50, 60 yards farther with drivers than even the great drivers like Nicklaus and all those people who were known as big hitters. You look at the speed in football, and it's maybe a little bit less violent, openly violent, but it's still violent. Baseball has changed the way the game is played, the way it's managed, the way pitchers pitch. Basketball has changed. It's not a throw it inside, let the big man dominate game anymore. Maybe hockey is the same, relatively the same. The style of play, although there's more openness now, and the NHL creates the openness with different rules for overtimes and things like that. Everything has evolved. So you look at a Butkus, although I think he's a Hall of Famer no matter what. Hell, there's barely any middle linebackers anymore, Gary.
I know.
True.
I mean,
4-3 middle linebacker from the that we grew up watching, with all these 3-4 defenses now, and the fact that linebackers, like in today's game, Butkus would be coming out on third downs.
So would my brother.
Second and long. Those guys are out. Yeah, those guys are out. In place of for another defensive back or whatever. It's just
it's ever evolving. Let's move on to a guy who used to quarterback your team that seems to be having some difficulty with the New York Jets.
Oh, Aaron Rodgers. I thought you were about the greatest quarterback of all time.
Well, no, I liked. Are you not talking about Brett Favre, are you?
Christian Adolph, Sonny Jurgensen, the greatest player in the history of the National Football
Team. Do you know that Sonny Jurgensen and Joe Namath are the only two quarterbacks in the NFL Hall of Fame that have losing records
before a game?
Yeah, that have losing records.
Well, it makes sense because Joe lived off that 1 year, and Sonny was just on some horrible teams. He had teams that had no running game at all, and he still carried them because of volume. I'm not surprised to hear that. He played on some bad teams. Still the greatest player of all time.
Getting back to
to Aaron Rodgers.
Yes. Is he throwing a temper tantrum in New York, or
why is he crawling around on his hands and knees, by the way? Did you see that video?
Yeah.
What was that?
I also saw him shunning the head coach
Yeah.
Do you think that Aaron is just like, all right, I signed his contract, I got to go through with it, because the Jets aren't any better than they were when he was not there?
No, they're disappointing. They're actually one of the biggest disappointments this year because there was some hope that if they could keep him upright, Rodgers, that they have a pretty good defense, but it's the rest of the offense that's underperforming. You've got Hall, who is destroying fantasy football owners just by being as bad as he is. You finally had a game out of Garrett Wilson that a lot of people were expecting, but he was targeted over 20 times. So there's clearly nothing being done there to spread the ball around.
Mhm.
I didn't see that game. The game I got stuck watching was that hideous Dolphins New England game. So I haven't seen the Jets
Oh.
yet. Yeah, it wasn't my decision. Believe me, if I would have put another game up at 1:00, if I'd been
Listen,
I had
listen,
controlled
Dave,
the TV.
Dave, I had to watch here the Colts against the Jaguars,
Yeah,
and
that was the other game on. That was actually entertaining. There were some nice big plays in that game, though.
I
Um,
don't. By the way, just getting back real quick, I don't think Richardson is ever going to be anything with the Colts. I don't think it's because of the Colts don't put anything around him. I just think he's an Andrew Luck. Every time he gets healthy,
no,
he
no,
gets
no,
hurt
no, no.
again.
Whoa, 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 whoa. Andrew Luck finished some seasons and took his team to the playoffs.
Yes,
So that's that.
I
I
don't
don't
think
know if
this
that's
guy's
an
ever going to
apt
do that.
comparison. Well, I'm stunned that a guy as big as he has been not able to get through.
That's
And
what I mean.
I think, to me, if we're giving him a like we're a college professor, he's an incomplete. He's not an F. He's an I. We just don't know. Andrew Luck, we saw enough of that. If Andrew
Yeah,
Luck had decided, yeah, you know what, my leg hurts, but I'm going to, continue to damage my body by taking shot after shot after shot and pill after pill and play 3 or 4 more years.
yeah.
That guy was a stud.
No, I
Um,
didn't mean that. I meant that, like Andrew, this guy keeps getting injured
well, that's true,
all the
but
time.
and it's interesting that they're competitive with Joe Flacco, but there was times yesterday when I watched that game and I go, yeah, he's 40. He,
Yeah. Oh
the
yeah.
rush would get there quickly and he would have to eat it.
Yeah.
No, it's the Rogers thing. And boy, of all the cities to go to, you'd
Yeah.
really rather he be, not that, by the way, other than Green Bay, you have a bunch of tiny towns for your markets. If he was in Atlanta, it would be a big deal. That's a pretty big area, but it's, I'm not sure the more we've learned about him, the more he turns out to be a little bit different than most of us. Seems to be quite content with that.
Yeah.
And but he lived off of it because his physical abilities and his head for the game were so good that you talk about arm angles. We mentioned Mahomes and Cam Ward and that ability to throw, sort of just the same way every time. Where he would sidearm it, he would do whatever he had to do to get
Right.
it in there, and his accuracy was uncanny. But no, this is a guy coming off of a serious injury that knocked him out for a whole year, and it's just not there for that team. I can't even imagine being a Jets fan and how awful that has to
Oh,
be.
oh, can you? I mean, the only thing I can compare it to is the next subject I wanted to get to is Stephen Ross like kicking himself in the ass, saying, I could have had these 2 guys in the draft. Instead, we went with this guy, and all that money that I gave him, and now he's concussed every time I turn around, and my season could very well be down the tubes unless he comes back and improves his team. But I think the Dolphins are done for the season. I do.
Well, I need to see them with Tua, and the good news is I think they've got another horse crap opponent coming up. Coming up, they're off the bye. They're on a bye this week.
Are
I
they?
think they've got another team. By the way, there are a lot of teams right now in the NFL.
Oh,
Um, but then it's going to start getting harder. So they could be 3-3 by the time he comes back, because what I saw. And let's face it, they took on a team that is just horrible in New England, and frankly, I think New England lost that game as much as Miami won it. And they almost did win at the end if that replay goes their way, and I think that was the right call.
yeah.
I then you've got a Dolphin team with 1 win. And listen, look what happened to them. They beat New England in the division. That's good.
Yeah.
Buffalo
Yeah.
loses, and the Jets lose again. So the Dolphins are sitting as far as the division goes anyway. Now, long term, no. Even with Tua coming back, what I'm looking for is just to make sure the Dolphins are on a bye in week 6. Yeah, they are. The Chiefs, Rams, Dolphins, and Vikings are on a bye. You've got a pretty weak division right now.
Yeah.
But who are the best teams? Minnesota is living a charmed life with Sam Darnold at quarterback, which makes you also wonder about the Jets coaching, because what is happening in Minnesota that wasn't happening in New York?
Yeah.
All right. You've got now, yes, he has maybe the best receiver in the NFL right now in Justin Jefferson, but still, food for thought. Could be a great coaching job by the young coach in Minnesota. Could be an equally bad coaching job by the Jets.
Yeah.
Who else is really good in the NFL? Actually, the team I like, and they don't have a lot of wins to show for it yet, is Baltimore. I think eventually that two-headed monster on offense they have. The Bengals did everything they could to stop Derrick Henry and did a good job until right at the very end. And Lamar Jackson, can make incredible plays. The Chiefs are winning, but they sure ain't the Chiefs from 3 or 4 years ago.
No.
They're
getting older. They're getting older.
They're winning by, I'm not sure how. Statistically, Mahomes is not having a good season. Kelsey is slowing down, which is understandable. The running game is okay. They just losing Rice for however long they lost him is going to hurt. They haven't taken the blinders off Xavier Worthy yet. And really have not just got, hey, Pat, you can throw the hell out of the ball. Just throw it as far as you can throw it. We got a guy who runs a 4.140. He'll find it. They haven't done that. So, who do you like in the NFL right now?
I haven't been paying as much attention as I do to college football, but I think Kelsey's suffering from a Taylor Swift letdown.
No, I think he's suffering from being 35 years old and getting the hell kicked out of him for all these years.
Yeah,
I really do.
Be.
I mean, it didn't seem to affect him last year. And he had a fun summer. Well, why not? If I were dating the world's most famous woman, I would probably try to go have a good time with her too. And if I want to continue the relationship, and part of that relationship is she likes it when I support her, then I'll go to London. I'll go over here. I mean, you have one life. So I'm not going to pick on Kelsey for that. I'm not that much of a, I expect that when it's time for him to be dedicated, he'll be dedicated. And if he's not, then he can just walk like his brother did. His brother decided, hey, what the hell? I've been pretty dedicated for a lot of times here. I think it's time for me to find something else to do.
Yeah, but I think offensive linemen are like running backs now. We go through them faster than probably most positions in the NFL.
I question sometimes, Gary, how much guys love football anymore.
Yeah, true. That could be true.
You can make all your money. Now, it's, of course, with football, it's rarely guaranteed, except for the Browns. Oh my God, we could do 5 days on how screwed they are. But
look at the quarterback. Look at the quarterback.
That's what I'm talking about. The amount of money they owe that man, that $232 million deal they signed for him that's guaranteed, and every year the cap hit gets worse. And he's playing poorly. This was a team that, again, kind of like the Jets, has great defensive talent. Yeah. And you've got name players. But yes, it would help if they had a real running game with Nick Chubb, and I guess he's eligible to come back. But man, that team might be the most screwed of anybody in pro football financially because of what they thought they could do with Watson.
Yeah, apparently so. We've got about what time?
Well, you mentioned college. Was there something there you wanted to talk about, or you have?
Yeah. Oh yeah, we've got about 5 or 6 minutes left in this particular program. Dave
it
LaMont
actually brings up something I was thinking about talking to you about. So you start.
Go ahead. Go.
It's this. All right. College football this year, who's the best team? Well, I start with that. Who do you think, if you were going to take a 4-team playoff the old way, who are your 4 teams right now?
Well, at the beginning of the season, I thought Georgia.
Right now.
Oh, right now.
Yeah, right now. The season's over, and you, Gary Allen, before you lose everything you have to a hurricane, are going to get the last vote to pick 4 teams. You're going to throw everything aside. You're not going to worry about whether you love Miami or not, although I would probably pick them. But who are your 4 teams?
Alabama.
Okay.
I think they'll recover.
Despite what happened. But the season's over now. We just ended the season. So the last game Alabama just played was losing to Vanderbilt.
Okay. Georgia, I still think is still going to be there.
I agree.
Tennessee rings a bell in spite of what
Got their ass beat.
Yeah, but I still think they got it. And then I'm gonna go with our guy.
Okay. All right. Here's the thing. That game with the expanded playoff, you're almost turning this into the NCAA basketball tournament. Let's say it's January and number 1 ranked Alabama goes to Vanderbilt and gets beat. And it's a little ripple in the pond. Ultimately, it's not going to affect Alabama at all. Right? In the basketball world. It doesn't.
No.
Those games are meaningful until you wake up the next morning. Now, it's great for the team that performs the upset, looks good in the media guide. They can put it on their website. They can tweet it. They can win the social media battle, and then you move on. And I'm a little bit concerned that we're getting to that point now in college football because I still think Alabama is good enough to make the playoff. The Georgia-Alabama game didn't hurt either team. So Georgia lost, but I 100% agree with you. Georgia is a play. But you have Texas. You left them out.
Yes, I did.
Texas is actually the top team in the SEC right now in their first year.
Yes.
But they've got tough games coming up. And you left out Ohio State.
Yeah, and
win the Big Ten.
Yes. But they've been overlooked a lot too because they're ranked.
Well, they played terrible teams, but not Saturday.
Yeah.
You know what they have to do Saturday?
Yeah, I know.
Oregon.
I know. And that's not going to be easy.
It's a Big Ten game, folks.
Yeah.
Remember that. It's a Big Ten game.
Yeah.
Well, here's the hilarious part, Gary. Here's a trivia question for you. Who did Oregon play in their first Big Ten game?
Oh, God. I don't
As
know.
a member of the Big Ten, playing in the Big Ten.
Wasn't it Michigan?
UCLA.
Oh, okay. Oh, see, I'm not used to the realignment stuff yet, and I'm
Understandably, bro. That's a Pac-12 game, but it was in the Big Ten. I thought that was hilarious when I saw that. Oregon's 1-0 in the Big Ten after beating UCLA.
By the way, Mario made
these. I'm sorry, Gary. Let me just finish this up before I forget.
Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
My point is, some of these upsets that we used to celebrate are not going to have the effect on the playoff that it would if we had a smaller playoff.
Agreed.
Now,
Mario made a big deal about the 3,000 miles they traveled and scheduling the game at 10:30 at night, which I agree with. I kept saying
that's TV.
10:30 at night.
That's TV.
What? You know, I mean, yeah. And
Blame
for him, it was really 7:30. I mean, California time. It's
that
7:30.
happens. I'm sorry, that happens all the time. Do you think the NBA guys go, "Oh, damn it, we have to play the Lakers, and it's going to be at 10:30 Eastern time"? If you're the Miami, no, you play. All right, I don't want to. That is something I have no interest in hearing about. If you're worried about the time change, go out a day early. And by the way, to me, and I've done it, and so have you. It's a hell of a lot easier to go there than to come here.
Oh yeah, I would travel,
even close.
When I would travel from Las Vegas to work the East Coast to do a show, I would be tired. I'd have to take a nap, and I don't care if I slept 3 hours on the airplane back.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it was just that way. We're just about running out of time. Give us some ideas of what's going on. What are they here? Ohio State, Georgia, Texas, and Penn State is what Tommy picks.
Penn State's a good choice. They're undefeated, and they have smoked everybody they have played. I tell you if that's only 4, but let's quickly remind you that Indiana and Miami are the only bowl eligible teams. You know, you've got Michigan's dead. They can't. They don't have the offense. So Michigan, Ohio State game. Michigan be a
How about Army Navy? They could
undefeated. Both undefeated. I think they're both 5-0 for the first time since the 50s or 40s.
Yeah.
One of them might get in. Boise State might get in as the Power 5 team.
Yeah.
Not Power 5.
Did you ever call a game in Boise?
Yeah, love it there. Absolutely love it there. Did
you have to wear sunglasses for that field?
No. Games were at night. I never did. I did do a bowl game there once. It was real cold, but no. The field is actually really kind of cool. The town is just the city of Boise.
Oh, yeah.
It's pronounced not Boise, but Boise is.
Boise.
Yeah. Trust me.
Oh, it's a nice town.
I've
been there.
No, I say by trust me, you got to call it Boise. The city is fantastic.
Oh, yes.
It's like it reminded me of a miniaturized Austin, Texas.
Okay. All right.
That would be my explanation for Boise, Idaho. So long way to go, though, from here. It's a long trip.
Oh, yeah. I performed in both cities. But
people
are nice. People are nice. Austin, they were very nice to me.
Great town.
Of course, I was with Tom Jones. So, I mean, it was like, it was something else again. But Dave, we got about a couple of minutes left. Give us your perspective. Dave is going to be back in November. We're waiting on a couple of dates to figure out. We're going to talk after the show and then next week. Give us some ideas of what you're thinking about upcoming this week in the world of sports.
Well, I for college football, I think that Oregon Ohio State game is the game of the week because it's Oregon now really playing a Big Ten team and playing perhaps the best one. And again, but how much impact will that game have? They'll say Oregon knocks him off. Ohio State. The Big Ten has got a problem because they have almost too many good teams.
Yeah.
I think so. We're going to learn a lot about Ohio State for the first time. They're finally going to be tested. They're done with the soft part of the soft underbelly of their schedule, and so they're going to finally get tested. Is the baseball playoffs? Are we going to lose the Dodgers? I kind of hope not. I would rather have them stick around to watch Ohtani. I think Cleveland and Detroit is a series that's badly underrated because it's two teams that don't get a lot of national run, even though the Tigers got a lot of run with that hot finish they had. Cleveland is a team that you have to get to early.
Yep.
If they pull out their bullpen and they can beat you inning by inning, and then they have this kick-ass closer. So Cleveland could make some noise in the American League.
I don't think my Phillies are going to get past the New York Mets unless Nola pulls it out tomorrow night somehow. Those bats have to come alive.
Yeah.
I like the Dodgers' chances, although San Diego plays them very tough.
Yes, they do.
Yankees.
There's some definite animus there. It is a little brother, big brother thing going on, I think, with those guys. San Diego being beautiful in its own right, but it's that giant shadow from 2 hours up north is hard to get away from.
It's a beautiful city. I've been there many times. I like the Royals over the Yankees. I really do.
Right.
And I don't have a dog in the race between Detroit and Cleveland. Let's see what happens, but I have a feeling my Phillies hitting is not going to come around, and it'll be another year for Dave Dombrowski to figure it out.
He has before.
He has. Dave, thanks.
My pleasure, Gary. Fun.
And stick around there. And to all of you out there watching the show and will be watching the show, thank you so very much for joining us. On behalf of Dave LaMont, Gary Allen with you here on Main Street. Take care of yourselves. And if you're in the eye of the storm, please take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and God bless for now.
You know what I did? We didn't talk about. I just was reminded. Why would the Panthers cancel their